Hey everybody, and welcome to the GameSpace Game Show. We have an amazing, enormous, may I say titanic show today. We have some new people here with us on our team, and we have some very special guests. But first, I'd like to start by saying hello to Ralph. Ralph, how you doing?
I'm doing all right.
Excellent. And we have a new person from our team, Scott, who you may know he's done several articles for us. And Scott, how you doing? Oh, Scott's gone dark. We've been having some audio troubles today, but I think everyone's going to be able to get back on. And our special guests today are from Missing Worlds Media, who are the developers for City of Titans. And this is our big superhero show. And we have several of their team here. So we have their project lead, which is Chris Workhabit Hare. Chris,
Howdy.
How you doing?
Doing all right. Glad to be here.
Love to hear it. And we have David Terwin James, who is the
Hello.
business director.
Hello.
And Nate, I think, is around. He may be popping in and out. He is the technical director. Nate, are you around?
Right here.
Oh,
Right here. Hello.
amazing. Last minute, he's able to pull it through. And then lastly, we have Spiro Tanem Raxiotis. Am I pronouncing that correctly, Spiro?
You got so close.
Oh, so close.
I too would greatly love to hear the correct pronunciation.
Story of my life. Roxiotis.
Roxiotis. Okay.
Greek, then.
Very much.
Well, he's lovingly known as Tanem. Am I at least getting that right? Am I close?
Yes.
On that one? Okay. And he is a gameplay design specialist. And this is kind of a big weekend because this is a big superhero weekend for me. As many can tell, I'm dressed as Captain America because it is the Avengers Infinity War. And to celebrate that, we want to talk about some games out there. Well, actually, one game in particular. It's actually a game that I've been watching for a little while, and I'm glad that we have the City of Titans team here to tell us a little bit more about it. So I'm going to pass this on over to, I guess, Chris or Nate, whoever wants to pick this up, and tell us a little bit about maybe what drove you guys to start City of Titans.
Well, Nate was there. So, Nate, do you want to take this one?
I was also there.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah, me and Terwin were there in the first meeting, so.
Hey.
Well,
Well,
actually,
go ahead. Give us
if
an idea.
If I recall correctly, I was basically the first one on the list. And
Wait, guys. Let's stop and move back about 7 years before that.
yeah,
Real quick.
true. That's a full story.
Once upon a time, just before World of Warcraft ever existed, you got to go way back for that one. There was a video game that was launched and then promptly stepped on by World of Warcraft being the world's biggest thing. It was called City of Heroes, and it was a game about being your own superhero. About flying through the sky, blasting bad guys, and punching them real hard until they, well, stop moving. And saving the day. Or later, it was City of Villains, and you could steal the day. The point was, it was great. It was all about being who you wanted to be. And then one day, due to legal issues, mostly business issues, taxes, people think, the game got shut down rather abruptly. And, you know, the thing is, this was a uniquely positive community, and we looked left, looked right, and said, we've been playing this game for 7 years. we've grown up. There's lawyers, there's programmers, there's artists. We don't have to take this. We're going to make our own game.
That's right.
That's how it's done.
Yeah, I will fully admit that at the time I had no idea what I was getting into. But that's the way it is with a superhero. You first put on the costume, you solve your first crime, and then you find you're in over your head and wouldn't want it any other way.
So at the beginning, it was just you guys were enjoying the game, and then after the shutdown, you guys all just had a cape and a dream and just wanted to make it happen. Is that
well? We had a 6-month warning, and we used that time to prepare, but we decided to not actively work on it till the day after. Well, a couple of days after. It was kind of an emotional time for a lot of us.
Well, Missing Worlds was formally founded the last week of December 2012 under a DBA. We later incorporated.
And there's a very good reason why the worlds are missing.
Well, is that because you're missing the world that is shut down, or you're just missing the world that you haven't created yet?
Yes.
Well, if you take a look at our
superheroes are a metaphor. They mean a lot. They mean what you want to put into them. And a lot of the times, the real answer to something is pretty much a yes to a multi-part question. Because a lot of things can be true at once.
Yeah. There's a reason why our logo has a telescope on it.
Oh, the Missing Worlds media logo. Whenever you said that, I looked at the City of Titans logo and I was like, wait a minute.
No, I'm talking about
there's a Phoenix on it.
But yeah, the telescope is basically we're just searching for a new home kind of thing.
Now, that being said, let's we've told you where we came from. Now, the next step is to tell you where we're going.
Absolutely.
We are not recreating City of Heroes. To be absolutely clear on that.
See, that's a very important distinction, because a lot of people know this to be as a spiritual successor to City of Heroes. That's kind of what it was billed as, and I think that's an important distinction to make, to say, hey, are you just going to be recreating a game of long past, or are you going to be moving forward?
I think you can see by our graphics that we are definitely aiming for AAA quality as much as we can. We may not always make it, but we're going to try real hard, and in parts we're succeeding. That being said, the metaphor I like to use is Final Fantasy. Final Fantasy VII is not Final Fantasy II.
Well, that's true.
But
Very true.
you can see connections. You can see similarities. You can see themes. I like to think of our game as the game the City of Heroes developers would have made if they knew then what we know now and had the tools that we have when they had back then.
Right.
It's not the same game, but it has a lot of the same spirit and a lot of the same intangible feel to it. Even though the mechanics are considerably different, there's more possibilities, more choices, more everything, because frankly we have better tools now.
Yep.
Well, much better tools. And that kind of brings me into kind of another point, is that whenever you guys started a long time ago, and the Phoenix project started in 2013, and you guys were using Unreal Engine 3 at that point? Or
we actually began with something called Multiverse, then we went to CryEngine, then we went to Unreal 3.
Okay.
Did a couple of stages to make sure we got the right choice from, you gotta.
And Epic has been very,
partners.
very good to us.
Epic has been so good to us. We really lucked out by not going with CryEngine. I don't know if you guys know what happened to Crytek.
Well,
I think I read some stuff about it before. I can't exactly remember what I read.
It kind of exploded and imploded. Far Cry is pretty much the only thing left of it, except for the parts that got bought basically bought by Star Citizen and are now suing each other, and the other parts of it that went to Amazon and became Lumberyard.
Oh wow.
I
Okay.
don't want to know, and they're suing each other. No, Crytek is suing Lumberyard or Star Citizen or possibly both. It's hard to tell. Either way, I don't want to think about the support we would have gotten, which would have been very
Or lack
little.
of support.
Yes,
Yeah.
and Epic has been. Yeah, every time I say this, it's just so easy to say Epic has been epic, but
Yeah.
they have been amazingly good in developing a community that did not exist before Unreal 4. We made a
Put it
big
thi-
we made a big leap of faith moving to 4 when we did,
Yeah.
and it's just paid out for us big time.
Put it this way: when Epic won an award for Best Engine, I think 2 years ago, I sent them an email congratulating them. And when we kind of won an award, they returned the favor.
What award did you guys win?
I'm referring to the prosthetic, which we'll talk about later.
Oh yeah, we're gonna get to that for sure. So with that in mind, let's kind of get into all the little nooks and crannies of what makes this game different than City of Heroes. Let's kind of start with that. And while we do that, I'm going to show a few videos on the screen here. The first one I'm going to show is it's going to be some of the you guys were at PAX West recently, and you did kind of a little demonstration of what you guys had going on. So I'm going to start showing that video, and maybe you guys can talk a little bit about it, because what I liked about the PAX West presentation is that you guys had a lot of information in there, and you had a lot of gameplay that showed a little bit of everything. You showed a little bit of combat, you showed a little bit of the costume creator and all of that. So maybe you guys can talk a little bit about that while everyone's able to see that.
It's been so long. Nathan, you were there. Do you remember anything?
Yeah, I still remember most of it.
Okay.
You also remember the other panel we did for the PAX
Well,
Dev
that's
outside thing?
That's the dev. You don't talk about that outside of dev. So
Okay.
What happens in dev stays in dev? Is that what we're supposed to believe here?
PAX developers for developers. No media allowed. Chance for us to talk without, worrying about what we talk about. Touching various subjects that we don't really want out.
So an interesting thing that I'm watching, because I'm actually watching this as we're talking about it. It looks like in that particular demonstration, it seemed like you guys almost had like a pet class running.
We have the preliminary for a pet class, but the control system for it is not developed at all yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
We have to get the game itself out first, because we don't want to be...
Basically, they're all running an automatic, which is slightly too good unless you dumb it down quite a bit. If that makes sense. An automated system will just destroy everything in its path.
Yep. Yeah.
Oh, remember,
Like a scrapper.
Remember when we first tried the first-person shooter with our AI routine there, Cabot?
Oh my god.
Oh, God. Oh, God.
Oh, that freaking AI.
It was basically an aimbot. I mean, aimbot versus aimbot. It was disturbing because it found new.
It was like facing off against Terminators, and you had pea shooters. They just wouldn't stop.
The thing figured out how to spawn camp.
Yes.
So
You
you
know,
guys
that's-
made like a T1000 engine,
Oh.
just
No,
And
it
then
was
let
a
them
little
multiply.
worse than that. I believe the reference would be. I lost the reference. Never mind.
Let's just say Skynet was aware and watching.
Yeah, the
Skynet
AI
was toying with the developers.
Yeah, it would. It would learn how to box you in. It taught itself to flank you. And
Huh.
so every tactic I took to try to outsmart the AI, I was always end up gunned down. There was just no way of actually surviving against it. It was just ridiculous.
Perfect
Wow.
aim, perfect situational awareness.
Yes.
whoa.
I
So-
think I've heard that before, that people had said and I think it was a long time ago. We're talking about like whenever you were playing, you know, with bots in Perfect Dark or something. They said that the toughest part was making an AI that was bad, because a lot of times the AI was a little bit too perfect in finding, you know, where you were or what you were doing, and always could get the headshot if it wanted it. I mean, so I could definitely see how that could be a problem. Yeah.
Well, it makes sense that designing something to fail is an extremely annoying thing to do.
Yeah.
But fun. Oh, so much stupidity you can write in. But that's beside the point.
Yep.
Well, so aside from the pet class that you guys are having, what other classes or I guess abilities have you guys really worked on? Because one thing that was really interesting about City of Heroes was that they had different you know, archetypes that you could you know, kind of spec into, and I really like that more so than you know, kind of the way that they ended up going with Champions Online, how it was kind of cherry picking everything. So how are you guys planning on doing that? Are you going to kind of go harken back to the way that like City of Heroes did, like the classes?
You're absolutely correct.
We're using a City of Heroes type archetype system, but with a twist. A
very fun twist.
The archetype itself picks your primary power set, you know, what type of powers you can have.
Mm-hmm.
You then get a secondary pick, which allows you to specialize. So you get subtypes under that. Now, we're only launching with one subtype initially, but we're going to add 2 more to each one of them.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And then on top of that, as you level up, you can then master your system and get a mastery that really changes the game for all of it.
Real simplify in a different way. The mastery is the part of the game that breaks the rules.
Mm-hmm.
If you played City of Heroes, you could take the DPS role. I'm saying this in generic MMO terms.
Right.
Which was primary. Your primary was damage. Your secondary was armor. And and since you were a scrapper, as the DPS is called, you had a special ability called crit, where you could do critical double damage on things. There are other ones, which, like the tank, which had an aggro generating punch on every attack.
Right.
The Dominator, which was a control class
the Dominator.
that, you know, doubled its power every so often. I'm simplifying and going through, but the Masteries are different by class. That is, say, not all classes have the same masteries, but they are the I break the rules now part of the game. So
which is a must for a superhero game, obviously.
Oh yeah, you got to break the rules.
Yeah.
Yes.
The DPS role could choose to have double crits on top of whatever sort of critical damage we already have. It could choose to use a technique we call momentum to build more momentum and have your damage go up as your momentum goes. Does that sound familiar to anyone who played City of Villains?
Yes.
A brute.
Or they could do something completely different, like growing larger in size as they attack, so that eventually your single target attacks become area of effects every time you punch.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
That would be so cool.
These are the parts. The masteries are the part that changed the game. Again, City of Heroes, you had primary, which was your strongest power, so armor. Your secondary, which was your weaker, which was your, say, DPS, and presto, you have a tank. And then your tertiaries, which we will have, but they're a little bit different, not worth getting into now. I'm just saying that they exist. The point is, you've picked your primary, that's your class. You know, your armor primary, your damage primary, your range primary, your control primary. Your secondary, we have chosen a selection of secondaries that can go very well with the primary. We're starting off with 1 per primary, so basically the classes are the same as City of Heroes.
Right.
But eventually you'll be able to have more than 1, not at the same time. What you'll be able to do is respec into them. So you can have a build that's armor slash DPS for tank, but you could also go armor slash control or armor slash range.
Yeah, not control, range, or manipulation.
Okay, so
Yes, I understand manipulation. I'm using the old names because.
so would there be a possibility, let's say, if you had armor as your primary, to also have like an armor as a sub?
No.
No.
One thing, you wouldn't have any attacks.
Okay.
Do you ever play? There are certain things that, again, City of Heroes taught us a lot. There are certain things that were not fun. For example, the reason the Ice Brute, which was now this would be ice armor on a damaged character, and the special effect of ice, of course, was to slow people down.
Right.
Now the Brute, as before mentioned, the more you attacked and the more someone attacked you, the more damage you did. So if you have an ice armored Brute, every time they attack you, they slow down, so your damage goes way down.
Right.
As you wade into battle. That class existed. That group of settings existed for 1 week in the beta. I tried it. They took it out. They were right to do so.
You had to be really, really, really specialized in knowing how to play ice in order to make that thing work, and it was a pain.
And you know what? That's a little interesting because I mean, you do harken a lot back to, City of Heroes in the way that you learned a little bit from playing those different classes. Now, are there some classes? I mean, do you guys remember what your favorite, what your favorite abilities were, what your favorite classes were from the City of Heroes or City of Villains game?
Instant healing.
I should point out that we're not having an empathy either for those reasons. The healer class is not active enough for launch. We added it, but
yeah, by the time it shut down, my Katana Regen Scrapper defaulted to basically being 60% of the way to capping regeneration as a passive.
Wow.
So,
and I understand that because I played broadsword regen.
Yeah.
So yeah. So yeah, I definitely know like that thing. I mean, it was pretty unstoppable. I gotta say.
Well,
I mean,
the Divine Avalanche. No, that's not the defense one. The 3-second recharge attack that also boosted your defense was probably my go-to.
Butterfly.
Yeah, they changed the name for the Katana set.
Yeah.
I made the character when it was basically the same thing as broadsword, but I quite enjoyed the change.
So another quick thing while we're on it.
Before we move away, there's one more point I wanted to make,
Sure.
and I think it's a useful one. One of the big things that we are bringing over from City of Heroes, speaking of control and manipulation, is that the control classes in City of Heroes were different from what most games would give you. The controls matter. There really was no dedicated healer types except for the empathy, and they were rare.
Mm-hmm.
It was a matter of what you brought with you and who you brought with you. You could take care of yourself most of the time anyhow, but the controls, if you have a good controller, you can take down an entire stadium of people and just lock them out for yourself.
Yeah.
There is no kill like overkill.
Yeah, I ran it with a full team of Storm controllers, and that was just
A hurricane.
Yeah, controllers were pretty crazy. I actually was in a guild that was all scrappers and controllers. Like that was it. It was actually called the Scrapper and Controller group. So
I will fully admit that my favorite controller setup ever was Gravity Storm.
really,
I mean, Propel is just awesome.
I mean, I vaguely remember that one, but
Well, Gravity's where you throw the Buick at people.
oh, that's right.
Yes.
And we did see a
there
little
we
bit
go.
of that in the video that you guys were showing at PAX West. It looks like there was one ability where you were just throwing nonstop.
Oh yes,
yeah.
yes, including the kitchen sink.
Yeah.
I believe
And
it's
for people who
I believe the toilet is also a possibility to throw at people.
forklifts. The forklift is, yes, a reference to he tried to kill me with a forklift.
Yes.
Mystery Science Theater, thank you.
Yeah.
But you are not balanced against one enemy. You are balanced against a whole bunch of enemies. You're going to be fighting. If a team of you gets in a fight, the entire room is going to explode, and that's our point. It's been done before.
Especially if you happen to have a pyromaniac player on your team.
Oh God, no.
Well, the way I always look at it is watch a good, superhero movie like Watchmen. Night Owl and Silk Spectre go down an alley and get jumped by what? 30 guys? And the two of them beat them.
Right.
That's the feeling we want. It's not like, I log into WoW and, oh my goodness, I'm fighting one kobold and he's kicking my ass.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying that, Thanos comes down,
mm-hmm.
You're going to need a lot of people to take him down. There's no question.
Yeah, to the proper epic feeling reference that I have from City of Heroes is, I think, the third mission of Dark Watcher's arc in the Rikti Warzone. When you're attacking Nemesis' interdimensional base.
Oh yeah,
It's you against an army.
Which is how superheroes do it.
Don't forget the ancient Roman giant mecha too.
Oh yes. Yeah, I probably
and the literal you have to kill 300 of beat up 300 of these ancient Romans that are charging at you down a unstoppable channel in order to get to it.
I killed 10,000 Rikti monkeys, and all I got was this lousy badge.
And badges for us actually mean something. So
yeah.
Well, I mean, what do you get from badges? Do they go into titles? Do they?
Yes.
They unlock costume pieces or slots or extra abilities, things like that.
And you just hit the segue of the day. You said costume pieces. So what I want to show is this charge-in video that you guys had put out recently, because I think it's a pretty fantastic video. And
it's not finished. Oh no.
No.
Yeah. You're seeing about a quarter of the body manipulation, if that, and very little of the face.
Yes, we intentionally restrain ourselves in the video simply because it allows us to go to a much higher standard than people think possible.
No, it just took too long to film all of them, and people got bored.
Oh, that too.
Well, it's a lot tougher to watch someone do this.
Odd minutes at first.
Yeah, then it's tougher to watch it than actually like whenever you're playing with it yourself, which is something that you guys mentioned may be possible sometime this year, possibly.
Oh yeah.
Okay. So what I really enjoyed about this one is, City of Heroes, they kind of, if I recall properly, they did have a little bit of slider action going on with the height and stuff like that.
Eventually. It started off with nothing, and then it kind of built in over the years.
Right. And so there are other games that kind of allowed for a little bit of slider play, but I mean, you guys take it to like the nth degree on this one. With the, not just that, obviously like the arm length, the shoulder width, the hand size, that's all been done before, but you do it to extremes.
Well, you remember the original Incredibles trailer where he breaks the costume trying to put it on.
Yeah.
Well,
we wanted to be able to do that.
It's like when
if you really want to make T-Rex girl, go for it.
It's like when I saw this video, like I'm big into character creation. Like it's the whole reason I got into 3D in the first place, like making 3D and stuff like that. So, and when it comes to video games, I love character creation. Seeing this video, it got me really hyped for when this comes out, so I can just go around and play with it. Because I like that, you can stretch out the arms, stretch out the legs, make whatever kind of character you want.
A quarter of what will be.
And
soon.
And like you can even make Mr. Fantastic. Like I saw how the guy really stretched out and everything like that. I'm like, it's Mr. Fantastic right there.
That's one of our year 2 power sets.
Really?
Is a long melee stretching. It's also going to be there's also going to be hair options for it.
Which is interesting to note because if I recall correctly, for the original trailer of City of Heroes, that was on one of the lists, but it never ever made it into the game.
Yeah, they had trouble keeping the hands on the arms. I'm not joking. You know,
Yeah.
they throw it out, and the lag would make it kind of separate.
Yep.
Yeah, no. One of our year 2 power sets is a sort of stretching themed animation thing where you can use hands or you can use hair or feet. You know?
Nice.
But yeah, we're planning on actually having something
Tendrils,
themed around.
tentacles.
Tentacles. Don't forget the tentacles.
Oh.
Tentacles.
Yeah.
Hey, we're
you-
aiming for a T rating game.
Dr. Octopus, come on.
yeah. Well, the
But
thing
yeah,
is
Doc Ock. I mean, Doc Ock is a legitimate option here.
Yes.
that's
But
pretty cool.
the thing is, yeah, there's a lot of stuff that beyond anything that we say today, there are things that we have planned that we know we can't do until, well, honestly, we have a lot more money.
Right.
Which will,
Yeah.
game goes out, we get money, do more development.
We've also
we-
had a
but we have
few
planned
points
for
where we
much
had
of
to. Yeah, we've also had a few points where we had to wait for technology to catch up to us too.
Right.
Yes.
Which is kind of an interesting point. So that's a question that I had whenever you guys originally started this one. You guys, I'm going to say that you're actually a little bit lucky in the sense that you guys crowdfunded and it was pretty successful because that's an achievement in itself. But what brought you guys to decide to crowdfund in the first place?
We had no choice.
How many people were asking? It was every day we'd get at least 3 people ask.
Yeah,
That makes it
they're
sound like
the
you had no choice, like they were
Futurama
threatening you.
Shut up
like,
and take my money. We had probably about 4 different people saying that a day, at least.
And we're doing our very best to live up to it and make sure that they're getting at least a good return on it in some way.
Well,
We've been doing bi-weekly updates ever since, and video when we can, and Twitch when we can. Twitch is really hard to do on development stuff because, of course, nothing works because it's development.
right.
Yep.
Well, and that's also partially due to how you are developing your game in comparison to maybe how some other games are being developed. You mentioned recently that you guys are all working on different pieces of it that kind of all plug in together, and you were touting the new Unreal Engine 4.18
Yes.
update. Is that what you guys
That's
are talking about? Where you'll be able
that-
to kind of plug in anywhere now? Maybe you could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's a lot simpler to do now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've had cases where we plug in 2 things and a third thing stopped working. We were like, what the heck just happened?
But basically,
What was it?
it modularizes the code and allows us to break chunks like character generation, maps, database communication into individual chunks that are not affected by other chunks, which is surprisingly hard, and allows us to work with them dynamically so that people can pull and load certain things as opposed to having everything contained in one project. And if somebody touches the wrong thing, somebody else's stuff goes out of whack.
Yeah, we have a pretty
Isolation.
solid idea as to the level of spaghetti code that City of Heroes ended up with by the end. So we have a very good reference point of what to avoid.
City of Heroes was going to die.
So they just
around issue. I think it was around issue. I think 30. They had projected that at this point the starts with a B. Anyone remember?
Battalion.
Battalion was
Yeah.
going to come down. We would fight and lose, and the game would shut down because they couldn't support it anymore.
wow.
Wow.
So that basically means that it was killed off 5 years early.
Yeah, basically.
Well, but
Think
you know,
about the timing there.
the team
That's why
also
they were-
moved
That's why they
on
were switching
to
Python.
yeah. They moved on to Champions, and that's
Well, the first team moved on to Champions, and the second team came up, and Positron stayed over,
Right.
And the second team did a lot of the wonderful things that
Yep.
we remember from City of Heroes. They've since moved. Some people went to Epic. Some people went to Star Trek Online. But they stay in
Quite a
touch.
few ended up at Bethesda.
Bethesda,
Mhm.
yes, Bethesda.
Yep.
You want to know
really?
something funny?
Where's Warwitch at right now?
I think she's writing Christian novels.
Hmm.
I got one of them somewhere.
Well, it looks like they all just kind of dispersed. But so,
No,
you know,
they do stay in contact. I know that for a fact because
Of course, they became a family.
but but how many people stay in contact after 5 years after they quit working with each other?
Yep.
I have.
well, you are just special in that sense, David.
Well, of course, I'm autistic.
But so another thing that kind of brought this up because like Chris mentioned, the first group kind of split off and they created Champions Online, and then not too far long after that, we saw DC Universe, which I'm gonna be honest, I really got into DC Universe whenever it first launched.
The voice, oh god, the voices.
The
Gina Torres as Wonder Woman was an inspired choice.
Oh yeah, I mean,
and that then was supposed to be Mark Hamill's last work as the Joker.
Hamill's Joker. I mean, come on, and that's what I heard too. Is that was supposed to be his last Joker? But how could you not? Hamill's Joker just always gives me goosebumps. But aside from that,
have you seen the video where he's all the characters in the video?
No, I
Yes.
haven't.
Ooh.
I haven't seen that video.
Oh, well, you should be able to find it by that search. He does Joker, Swamp Thing. What's the Riddler? Not the toy maker guy. When he played on the Flash.
Trickster?
Trickster.
Yeah.
And
Trickster.
I want to say one cop, but I forget who the cop is.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna have to check that one out.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean,
still like
go ahead. Nick.
have you ever seen the one where the Joker kidnaps Mark Hamill?
No.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. He
Uh-huh.
plays himself. That's it.
Yep.
Yes,
He
that's the
plays
one I'm talking
himself.
about.
He plays everyone in there.
That's awesome. But aside from that, I really did enjoy the combat of DC Universe as well. I thought it was something different. I mean, for me, I hadn't really seen that kind of combat in an MMO. I know that they kind of played a little bit on Prototype, which was the name of the game. It wasn't an actual prototype, which I also thought was a pretty amazing game. So to see that kind of transfer over to the MMO space was something that kind of drew me in as well. But it did have a lot of problems with pacing in Endgame. But ultimately, there were 2 other games on the market. So what did you guys think about those games that you were saying, our game needs to be there? We're missing something that these games aren't providing. And what exactly do you think that was?
I hate to say this. Heart. It was missing the heart. But somehow. Okay, there's actually a couple things I want to say here. Talking really quickly about DCUO's combat and our combat. We are freeing things up a little bit from City of Heroes. Every attack is a route.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But the big attacks, the big Sunday punches, they're still going to root you for the feel of it, to give you that kind of impression that you're going to just stop here and knock the heck out of this guy.
Right.
It's a balance thing as much as anything. You can dance around and jab all day, but if you're going to be giving a Sunday punch, you're going to be planting your feet.
Well, the fun thing was
we are largely sticking with a traditional MMO combat style for a bunch of reasons, some of which are handicapped accessibility and child accessibility. I'm sure you've all heard the stories of the little kid playing it on somebody's lap.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So we want to stick with that.
Okay.
But the thing is, one of the things is, some of the flexibility that we got from working with Unreal is the ability to have multiple distinct combat structures. So we have the ability to evolve independent play styles in power sets. So theoretically, much like you could do combos in 2-weapon fighting in City of Heroes,
Right.
eventually we may have a full-on Street Fighter style combat set for
Oh wow,
for a melee attack.
that's pretty cool.
I'm not going to say we're going to do it. That's again a year 2 project. It's something that we might do. Another game that we're going to steal blatantly from, Secret World. The more difficult puzzles. One of the things that we're doing is giving people their own personal story. It's called a path, so that you can have a standard hero path, a urban hero path, a detective hero path, or a cat burglar path, if you want to have the opposite.
That's
but
good.
The detective hero path is going to have more complicated puzzles, not everyone wants to play that. Some people just want to walk around and punch things in the face. But we can do the detective hero path.
Detective path.
I'm just going, and frankly, everyone wants to do a little punch in the face sometimes. But if you want your main plot line to be cerebral puzzles, the whole look at the world for clues thing, we can take an individual personal storyline and make it all about that, all the way to 50. But we can also do that with combat styles. We can theoretically, this will require more implementation than we have time to focus on because we want to make the rest of the game work first.
Mm-hmm.
We can theoretically make one combat style, one power set that works with a alternate attack style, and you're doing quarter circle forward Hadokens, through the street.
That sounds pretty good.
We don't know how we don't know yet how it'll balance against everything else. Our mastermind, what we're
mastermind,
the gang attack, which we have to call mastermind. It's not called mastermind in the game, but we're calling it that because City of Heroes is the only one who had a pet class even like that.
Right.
Again, the control set for that is alternate to the standard. Your attacks will be normal, but you're also going to be working on in a different way to control how the pets move.
Yeah. Right.
We have a lot of work to go there, but one of the options that we're trying to work in, we have the technology to do it. We have experimentally proved it, but it's going to take a lot of work, is having a tablet as your second control that displays a top-down, and you literally move your guys around, saying, okay, here,
little RTS style almost.
DPS guy, stay back here. Tank guy, go up front and handle things that way.
Interesting. That definitely cool. It is a little bit different. It kind of feels like I said.
Call of Duty, I think. We had the idea first, but but I think one of the Call of Duties has an optional tablet control set for called in munitions something.
Yeah, it's sort of like a commander mode or something like that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well,
Commander is the name for the class, by the way.
Commander is the name of the class. Okay.
Yeah, which is why one of the videos is the dance commander, but that's beside the point. Anyhow, but what the thing is, City of Heroes and Champions and DCUO, all of them existed at the same time.
For a little bit.
Well, yeah, for a little bit. But the thing is, except for that month when Champions launched, that month when DCUO launched,
yeah,
City Heroes didn't really lose population to either of them. People would go play, sometimes play both, but you'd expect the 6-year-old, 7-year-old game to kind of empty out into the newer ones.
Right.
They never did because I'd like to say there was something special missing, but there were a number of features beyond simply friends, because when friends moved to the game, they generally all went and played it together, for the first month together.
Right.
Then people came back because, I hate to just say secret sauce, but it's a whole combination of features that's really hard to get into. But it's a combination of individual, what's the word? Not motivation. When the character has choice.
Customization?
No. When a not vitality. Volition.
Moral decisions.
Volition, individual.
Volition,
There's a word.
Morality.
What?
Agency is the word you're looking for.
Individual. Harley Quinn has it. Harley Quinn has a lot of it. The character is doing what the character wants to.
Moxie. I'm just throwing out words at this point.
Inhibitions.
Agency.
Yeah. Lack of inhibitions.
Gosh, I hate it when I lose words.
Voices in her head.
Her first series was fantastic that way. Every time she went a little bit crazy, she'd start flipping into Paul Dini art, while she was hallucinating and bad things happened. But not volition. It's when the character has the ability to make their own choices.
Independence, then.
Not independent. There's a technical term for it, and but you know what I mean.
Well, we get the gist.
It's but there's a part where it was more about you than the outside world, and we're trying to make that even bigger, make your choices bigger. One of the things people didn't like was that the fact that you're always doing something for someone else,
right?
And we're trying to make it more so that you can make decisions about what you want to do.
Yes, you can piece together your own missions because you find clues.
Eventually, we don't quite have that word.
Yes.
Yeah, it's not working yet.
So we are running out of time. We've got about 20 minutes or so left. But let's kind of get a feel right now. Where do you guys feel that you are? I know that you guys haven't quite hit the alpha phase. Is that right? Or where exactly do you think?
The problem here is that we have about 20 major systems all moving toward completion in completely parallel stages.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So what's happening is a whole bunch of things are kind of slamming into each other at once. And all of a sudden we have this huge chunk of the game done.
Right.
Character creation hit first. It's not complete, but it's functional. But there's maps, quests, whole 9 yards. They're all slamming into each other fairly soon.
Yeah.
Yep.
Doing the character creator first makes perfect sense, since we figure about 60% of our players would be spending 40% of their time there.
Yep, I will. I'm letting you know. I will.
Yeah.
I mean, the NPC that I created hasn't even hit public yet, and who and what he is just creates so much promise for costumes.
There is that.
Technically speaking, in terms of our narrative, he's the inventor of some of our costume pieces.
Ooh.
But there's more than that. There's I don't know if you've seen it, or if you've noticed it, but at least one of those videos that we gave you today, these videos are not done. You're seeing stuff like metal parts in the body. That's an option that you get to choose. Do you want your arm to be aluminum, iron, or gold? And those all look different. You get to choose that. Not only that, but what color it is. That's if you're choosing iron, your arm will look iron,
right,
no matter if it's green or purple.
Yeah.
Which basically means what
Material.
I believe one
Texture
of the things
is whether it's striped or
I believe one of the things we hope to do, Chris can confirm this, is expand the texturing to the rock type textures. So if you want to do your stone armor, you can choose between slate, marble, or whatever.
Right.
But I'm not sure if that's.
Yeah. But we are building on customization in ways that are very hard to explain. Until you see them, and then it becomes obvious.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So we do have a question from one of our viewers out there. He says, is there a platform or website that prospective players can submit ideas for the game?
Well, there is always our forums at seaoftitans.com, and don't forget to check our YouTube, etc. But the problem we have, and this is part of why I do what I do, is we have too many ideas right now. And a lot of my job is taking my best ideas out back and shooting them because we can't do them, or saying we'll do that in year 2, or we'll do that in game 2. We have a theoretical game 2, which is made up entirely of all the really good ideas that were completely inappropriate for City of Titans.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. The game 2's ideas include levelless skill-based, action combat, custom gear that actually matters to you.
Right.
Say, this is my grandfather's Colt 45. He fought in World War II with it. And taking that gun and making it because it is your gun, making it the equal of a guy with an AR-15.
Right.
Because it is your an action hero, your gun. That's part of what it is. I'm stealing from Darren. What's that game with the printies where you have a dungeon in your gun? But that's beside the point. But
The
the
dance
point is,
gun
we have
is
so many
real.
ideas. We love them all. We love to hear new ones, but we have had to shoot 90% of them, and some of them were really.
And this one might be also shot, but we have another question that says, "Are you making an alternate UI for game controllers?"
Yeah, no, that we have that working.
That
Yes.
actually goes to the accessibility area of things, because for a number of reasons, we want this game to be able to be played with one hand.
Okay.
Yes.
That's not the way he means. Anyhow, the actual one of the things that Epic gave us in Unreal is the ability to recompile the game for alternate platforms. I'm not saying this game will be available for the Switch because, frankly, I have no idea how the graphics would work with that. Let alone
doable.
let alone the communication with the network. That's a
That would
legal
be
situation.
that's
Yeah.
different.
Yep. But theoretically, again, not promising this is a technical answer. Theoretically, we could compile this thing to work on anything, including most tablets. iOS, Android.
A lot of
Switch,
games are going that way. A lot of games are going that
Xbox,
way.
PlayStation, and for all we know, the original Game Boy. Epic, anything that we can compile it to anything, and for that reason, one of the things that we've been focused on is a dynamic alternate control scheme with easy remapping of keys. You can remap anything to anything, although sometimes you probably shouldn't.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of a big part of it, because I know that Champions Online was one of those where they did allow for some controller action, because I think they were planning on porting it originally to Xbox or whatever. But the control scheme didn't really work very well in all situations. So I mean that's going to be a big part of it.
I used Joy to key in City of Heroes a couple times when I hurt one of my hands.
The thing I love about Star Trek Online is that the control schema is very close to what City of Heroes was.
Right.
You've got your power trays and everything, and you're able to reassign which keys do what. Of course, the starship combat is the huge selling point for me, but well, that's just me.
I should also point out that there are things that will be inappropriate for City of Titans, like, for example, VR.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
This is, and just a 10 seconds digression there, because I think you'll like this. The reason City of Titans is really inappropriate for VR is if you're in the character's body and they do stuff like jump around or backflip, you're going to get sick pretty soon.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
However, one of my again, we have so many plans. One of the plans that I'm looking forward to is the fact that we can have a different, separate game running inside the City of Titans universe. I don't mean a different game. We have alternate games, single player games, etc. But we could have a VR game running on the same server in the same world, where you are playing Jet Set Radio in City of Titans, and people will see you screaming by and tagging things. And I'm being very serious about that. Jet Set Radio was a great game.
It was a fantastic game.
Yeah, but I'm just saying,
agree,
imagine a game where you go skateboard around, skate around, do grind things, and you can still see your friend beating up bad guys over there. You can go talk to him.
That's pretty cool. That's a really good idea. Having a game in a game. I've seen a little bit. You know what? I think Animal Crossing kind of had something like that, but you didn't actually stay in the world. I mean, obviously, but you could play a game in a game, and I always love whenever you find stuff like that in a game.
Right, and this is playing a game in a game, but with other people.
Yeah.
As opposed to, there's a mini game here where you get to play. One of our mini games is Quickie Cape, which is, I have to say, Angry Bird, except a superhero. It was a test It was originally a test to see if we could package the game in HTML5. Okay. So yeah, there was actually a web interface for City of Titans theoretically.
Yeah, it was. We released it as our April Fool's thing last year.
Yeah, tribute to a gentleman who's passed on, Ascendant, if anyone remembers him. But the point was, we were going to have mini games inside the game. Sure, no problem. Game of pool, game of whatever. Just for social hanging around.
That's
but
perfect.
This is
Candle
a
pin
different
bowling.
level of thing. This is a separate game coexisting.
Okay.
That sounds amazing. I really like that kind of stuff, and especially if you kind of make it as like a social hub.
Well, that's basically the core of our general attitude as to what we're doing. We're building a city centered on a community just as much as we're building a game.
Yep. And MMO is a social network.
Yep.
It's very true. So we are running out of time. We had some news stories to cover. We're not really going to be able to hit them all, and that's fine, because some of them are still maturing. No. This is actually, we do this every week. We always throw on some news stories that we can't cover. I do kind of want to broach the subject just a little bit about what is going on at Daybreak Studios, and the reason why it kind of matters a little bit because we've been talking about superhero games, and DCUO is part of that Daybreak Studios thing. A basic synopsis is there's been a lot of speculation out there on what exactly is happening. Originally, they were saying that Daybreak Studios had a parent company, and the parent company is having some hard times because of the sanctions that the U.S. has been doing against Russia, and then, all this kind of political stuff. And then, Daybreak came out with a statement saying that they're not part of that parent company anymore. And then they've kind of scrubbed the information from I guess their website or what have you. And then just a day later, they confirmed that there's, I'm not sure how many layoffs, but, there was a lot of layoffs, and, I always hate to hear that. So, I mean, that's always awful, to hear that there's so many layoffs, but it kind of...
Say something here?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm plugged into different networks than most people because of where I am.
Of
and
course.
One of the things that I've seen from that makes me really proud about everyone else is that as soon as the word of layoffs hit, pretty much every major game company around said, hey guys, if you just lost your job at Daybreak, here's our contact information. Send us and say you're from Daybreak. We'll see what we can do, or we'll try to pass you on to someone who wants someone.
Yeah.
It's not the first time I've seen it, but it's a great thing to see.
Yeah, we always see things like that as well. I mean, at MMORPG.com, there's a lot of contacts out there, and whenever stuff like this happens, we always see such great support from the other development studios. And we always hope that developers land on their feet, because we know that a lot of these developers put a lot of heart into what they do. So it's always terrible to see, but really the question surrounds Daybreak as far as what are they going to do at this point. And there's some rumors that they're looking to sell to another company. There was some talk that maybe they would be going or trying to sell to Intrepid Studios, which if everyone's kind of in the know on that, they also had a Kickstarter, and they are developing Ashes of Creation, which is another very big game that's going to be releasing sometime soon. So while there was
who are also a bunch of former Sony Online Entertainment people.
Say it again. You were kind of cutting out.
They people over at that studio, a lot of them came from Sony Online Entertainment, and so they have a lot of familiarity with the products of Daybreak Studios.
Oh, excellent. Well, they spoke to MMORPG.com and said that they aren't going to comment on any rumors, which is pretty much what you would expect for something at this point. So we don't really know what's going on, but the games affected by these layoffs were EverQuest, EverQuest 2, PlanetSide 2, DC Universe, and H1Z1. So if you are playing those games and you're kind of wondering what's going on, if you're worried about updates or so on and so forth, we're gonna keep on that and try and figure out what's going on there, because it affects a lot of games and a lot of gamers. So we definitely want to know ourselves what's going on. And what do you guys think? Do you guys have any idea what? One thing that everyone was wondering on the forums is if they are going to sell, who would it be? Because a lot of people were saying maybe Intrepid isn't the best place to go because, as we know, they were kickstarted, or they had some funds, but they also did a Kickstarter, so maybe they're not in the position to buy a studio and the intellectual properties that Daybreak has. So do you guys have any speculation on who you think might want to pick up the studio?
Well, I do have one point.
Okay.
It's just that when you're dealing with a licensed property, sometimes there are issues on who you can sell yourself to.
Yeah,
Right.
very much so.
So believe it or not, you just said it and my brain's just shut off again. Ashes is a creation people.
Mhm.
Since they were part of SOE, or a lot of them were, they may actually have a better option than some places, because if DCUO is to stay open, DC may have some words to say on the matter about whether they can successfully sell themselves and keep the licensed game open.
Well, what do you think about them splitting up the IPs across studios? One conversation that they were having on the forum was possibly the Amazon Game Studios. Amazon's a big company, and as we know, Amazon is also producing a Lord of the Rings show that's going to be coming out pretty soon, I think. And Daybreak also they publish Lord of the Rings Online. So do you think that maybe they would want to throw their hat in the ring? Do you think maybe they just want to maybe buy out that IP to kind of maybe get their foot in the door as a player in the MMO space before they actually release their first game?
I'm kind of against that thought, simply because Lumberyard is an entire backend system built upon Amazon's own system.
Mm-hmm.
If they were to buy it to take the IP, they'd buy it to shut it down and rebuild, and it's a real question whether the IP allows for that. There may be a license only for that game.
Right.
Yep.
It's a tricky situation once you involve the word IP and I don't own it. That's one of the interesting things about Champions.
Mhm.
Champions itself is a long-standing role-playing game. It is actually older than G.I. Joe, so Viper is older than Cobra.
So Champions is older than I am.
Yes, but the key point is, once Champions launched and was reasonably successful, they bought the role-playing game and licensed it back to the role-playing game studio.
Huh. That's interesting.
So they own their own IP. I think that was a lesson from City of Heroes due to certain incidents that led to their shutdown, but they do own themselves.
I think that was
City of Heroes itself was a Champions game.
Yeah, well, Champions originally wasn't supposed to be Champions. I think that weren't they originally in talks with Marvel for that one?
No, they were started as a Marvel game.
Yeah.
The entire Grand scene is very blatantly Incredible Hulk in Arizona.
Oh yeah, yep, very much so. So we're going to keep covering
Heroes
that.
was a Champions game to start with. The various factions map pretty much identically to Demon and Viper and the whole 9 yards.
Yep.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, I didn't really follow Champions until the game came out. So, yeah, that's a nice tidbit of information there.
I have a Champions RPG second edition book sitting right here. So
Nice.
So we've got about 5 minutes left or so. So let's talk a little bit about plugs. I'm going to pass this on over to Ralph. Maybe talk a little bit about what you're working on.
All right. Well, as far as me, I've been swamped in classwork a lot, but in between that, you can find me on my Twitch channel over at Trouble Wolfie, just streaming art during my breaks from doing that stuff. And I guess actually I've kind of been getting into that Hogwarts mystery game that came out on the Android recently.
I totally forgot about that. Like I
David Nakayama had a hand in creating it?
No,
I had no idea.
Nakagawa did all of the art for City of Heroes, all of the 2D art.
Huh,
Box
really?
art, the splash screens,
from
anything.
Going
that
Rogue
was-
onward, anyways.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's pretty cool.
Okay.
Well, you know, I
that-
haven't really gotten into it. What's how is it? I mean, in comparison to Pokemon Go, how's it doing?
Oh, it's you can't compare those two. It's literally, I feel like that's apple to oranges. Like Hogwarts Mystery feels more like a you know, the story games that's out now. Forget what those are called.
Story game? Is it
I mean,
Visual
yeah.
novel.
Bingo. It's more like a visual novel in this
Okay.
sense, in a way.
Interesting.
Because
me-
you're just going to scenes and then just clicking with your finger. That's it.
Okay.
You're not really going out searching around like a AR or a AR RPG or anything like that.
I think the game Steven's thinking about comes out later this year.
Which one?
The Hogwarts.
Oh,
the one that's virtual.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, this is
So
not
that-
by Game Freak.
Okay. Yeah. Huh. Okay. Yeah. So when does that one come out, Scott? Do you know?
No, I have no idea.
Okay. Well, it wouldn't be the first time I mix something up. And talking about that, mixing things up, Scott, what do you got going on? I didn't even know that you were around because I thought that you
I
had
was
disconnected.
I got the mic working, I guess.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Well, I wish I knew
actually-
that, but yeah. Go ahead.
Actually, I have a update for DCUO coming out pretty soon this week, just to give everyone an update of what they've added, like, you know, the events as far as Deluge, and they got an event for Death of Superman coming up and that type of stuff.
Sounds good.
Yeah, that's right.
That sounds really good. So we're going to see that article on MMO.
Yep.
Coming out this week.
Yeah, it's supposed to.
Awesome. Well, I'm gonna keep an eye out for that one. And what about you guys at Missing Worlds? What would you guys like to plug? I think I know, but I'm gonna let you say it. What do you guys got going on at Missing Worlds?
Well, besides our own forums at cityofitalians.com and our YouTube, which is under Missing Worlds Media, we do have a Patreon. And you can find that Patreon by searching under HIJINX, Hijinks, with an X. We do like continuing funding. We're not going to deny that. It defrays the weekly expense of a bandwidth. And the thing is, though, it's not just about supporting our game. We do a bi-weekly comic book. We think it's pretty funny and pretty good about a character in the City of Titans universe who, well, gets into horrible messes, and we're pretty proud of it. And we like to think that you get at least something back for what you pay for it.
Yeah. Excellent.
I'm totally interested.
Well, we've got a bunch of comic book fans here, and you know, you did share some screens with me, but I did not get to implement them into this stream. But have no fear, I will definitely follow up on that one with you guys.
I will fully admit that, unlike probably all of you, I got into comics from City of Heroes, not into City of Heroes from comics.
Okay.
That's interesting.
Hey, I'm only
married a
34.
comic
Comics
geek,
are a
so-
lot older than I am.
So another quickie, real quick. I know you guys are always busy, but are there any games that you guys have been playing that you might want to recommend to people out there? Something that you guys are kind of into that you might want to plug?
Yeah,
I've been playing the new Harebrained Studios BattleTech game, and oh my god, that thing's a blast.
Yeah.
I have two games that I would like to thoroughly recommend. One of which is a visual novel called Analog: A Hate Story,
I've heard about that.
which is extremely well done, and the other one is This War of Mine.
Heard about that.
Yeah.
As well.
I picked it up shortly after it was released, simply because, well, my background is I'm a historian, so the realism of it was very poignant.
Oh yeah,
The
definitely.
fact that it's done almost entirely in grayscale is just
Yeah. It's very it's actually pretty visually striking. I would say, yeah, very much so. So
I'd
go ahead.
like to also recommend BattleTech. I've been playing BattleTech since it was Battle Droids, and this is the game that I always saw in my head when I was moving the miniatures around.
That's awesome.
The other one is Cultist Simulator, by Alexis Kennedy, who was the lead on Fallen London. Cultist Simulator is, let's call it a video game board game, although that's close to inaccurate, and it is simply amazing. It's hard to explain, but it's sort of like a card game in which you build a cult, except it's a lot more dynamic than that.
It's great. Worth checking out. It sounds like. It sounds a little bit different than what I would be used to.
So it's accurate to call it Lovecraftian?
Oh goodness, yes. The whole point is that you are reading books and creating people who follow things that should not be named and looking for deep truths, and well, you get the deep truths. The question is, how long do you survive? I have unfortunately, I admit I have a problem. I keep finding the good ending, in which you work hard and nothing happens to you.
So
sorry.
Go ahead. No.
Surviving long enough to make yourself horribly sick by learning far too much about reality takes effort.
Wow.
So we are just about out of time. Before we sign off tonight, I do need to plug a few things myself. For those of you out there on our podcast and those of you on our streams, I would like to tell you that we are celebrating our 1,000 mark download for our podcast, and our podcast kind of started a little bit after the stream. So we started our podcast probably maybe about 2 months ago or so. So we are happy to say that our I don't know what you'd call him, our PR guru out there was able to get us some codes for let's see what we have here. Skyforge. We have some Xbox Skyforge codes that we're going to be giving out. And we're going to be giving them out both on the stream and for those of you on the podcast. And then we also are going to have some PlayStation and some Steam gift cards that we're going to be giving out as well. And they're going to be split up. So if you're watching this on the stream right now, you can send an email to enter the contest at gamespacegameshow@gmail.com. That's gamespacegameshow, all one word, @gmail.com, and just put stream in the subject line and your Xbox gamer tag, and you will be entered in the drawing to win. And if you want to enter a second time, you can do that on by doing it also on the podcast, which we will send. We will give you a separate code to put for the podcast as a second entry. So definitely check out the podcast if you have not, and get yourself in the running to win. These Skyforge codes are actually pretty amazing. They are about $35 worth of in-game items. So, I mean, you're getting a legendary weapon, a class costume, a companion, some visuals. Just overall, it's pretty fantastic. And aside from that, check out MMORPG.com and GameSpace.com. On MMORPG.com this week, we will also be posting a little bit more information about City of Titans, referencing this streamcast, because we know that a lot of people need to know about this game, because everyone's going to be watching it. And for me and everybody here, I would like to say thank you for watching, and we will see you next week.
Later, everybody.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thanks for coming.
Have a good weekend.
It's been a pleasure.